This is a Luxqaer podcast. Please enjoy. Hey guys, Luxqaer here. This video is going to be a pretty special video because we're going to be doing a tier list. It's going to be about the Xenoblade areas in all 4 Xenoblade games, from Xenoblade 1, Xenoblade X, Xenoblade 2, and Xenoblade 3. And I'm joined today by a very special guest. His name is Yggdrasil, and he'll be helping me go through this tier list one by one. Say hi, Yggdrasil!
Hey everyone, it's Yggdrasil and welcome to this video. That's right, I am joining Mr. Luxqaer on this video as we tackle a tier list of our favorite and not so favorite zones from all 4 of the main Xenoblade games.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun time. I know we're both Xenoblade 1 fans, but I think it's going to be pretty interesting because there's some areas in Xenoblade 1 that I'm just not a fan of, but like, there's a lot of other areas in the other games that I'm a pretty big fan of as well, why don't you say?
Yeah, I got some biases as well, but we'll just see how it lands. I think between the two of us, we'll figure out something pretty well. Alright, shall we get started?
Yes, let's get started. So, our first area is gonna be the Asia region. Now, I think the Asia region, I'll be honest, isn't really a great area in Xenoblade 3. Millic Meadows is extremely short for the beginning area, and like the rest of the area is just kind of meh. And it also has Capricorn Peak, which is regarded by a lot of people to be their least favorite ice area in Xenoblade. So I'm gonna just say it's gonna be our first C tier area. Why don't you think, Yggdrasil?
Already starting at C, huh? Yeah, you know, I think that's sort of fair, you know? I can appreciate the starting bits of that area in terms of, you know, the story. It did a good startup for that story. It felt almost a little too linear, that first experience with Millic Meadows, and the same thing with Capricorn especially. My big problem with Capricorn is always there just wasn't enough of it, but I agree on that. It was an okay starting experience, but I never really found myself like interested in purposely going back to that region.
It's just incredibly short and linear, and like even with the callbacks with like Gower Plains and the pedestals and whatnot, it just felt like there wasn't really enough there to draw me in. There's not a lot of interesting things going on. Really, all that is there is just like a waterfall and like a giant desolate area and just Capricorn Peak. I guess you can say the Cloud Keep is part of the Asia region. Why don't you think? It was pretty cool.
No.
I'd say the Cloud Keep was probably the best area out of that region, but in general, it's just kind of meh. I'll be perfectly honest.
No, I'd argue that too. The same thing like you're saying. It's like, you know, we had those expectations with Gar Plains, and then game comes out, and Millic Meadows is barely a fraction of that, in my opinion.
Right. And now let's go on to Agnirtha, which I'll be perfectly honest. Agnirtha is probably gonna be easy A tier for me. I think Agnirtha, it's kind of confusing for a lot of people to navigate around because a lot of places look the same, but I just like just going through it. It's just like really enticing to me, like the giant Manus shrine in the middle of it all. And like, just like the devastation of Agnirtha to me, just really brilliantly done for the Mechonis capital in general.
No, I can definitely agree to that. A for Agnirtha 100%, because in my mind, I always think of the journey or the story and the motif when we consider zones and whatnot. So shout out to Definitive Edition because it made Agnirtha in my mind a little less jarring to look at, you know, as it did with many other zones. But, you know, again, it's like in that journey sense, you know, we come across the Mechonis field, then we come across Central Factory, and then we go up, and then the home base of the leader of the Mechon, it's just ruins and disarray. you know?
Yeah, and just seeing like the Telethia just strewn about that place just feels so desolate, and it just makes me sad a little bit just going through it all. I think the music even encapsulates it really well, so
Absolutely does.
yes. And also some pretty great fights in there as well. So overall, Agnirtha is just a general A tier. Now let's head to Agnes Castle region, which, if you haven't played Xenoblade 3 in a while, Yig, but the Agnes Castle region is just this one tiny area, and
Yeah. I'm gonna...
yeah, I'll be perfectly honest, it's gonna be like in D tier. I'm sorry, Nia fans, but like it's just way too small for an area, and there's not much going on, really.
I think it's fair to call it D. It is just the one essential large room, and then I will give it props. The NPCs they put there refresh a fair bit, keeping it a little bit consistent, but you don't really have that much rhyme or reason to keep going back to there. So I agree. Its only strong suit is that it was the perfect stage for everything that happened between end of chapter 5, start of chapter 6. But once that's done, and when you can actually start exploring that area, it's just that tiny bit.
I'll be perfectly honest, though. I'm just gonna put it in C tier now that you said that about stuff about the chapter 5 and chapter 6 area.
Okay, we'll give it some props for caring in terms of the story just for a bit. Because that is sort of our backscape for about an hour or so of just everything. Yeah.
And now let's go to Alchemoth. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I may be biased, but Alchemoth is an easy S tier for me. I think Alchemoth is a very strong area. It's so expansive, and like it's so well lived in. Even though we don't like see actual houses in there, the fact that like the Hyantia just phase in and out from these little portals, we know that they live somewhere in this huge area. Maybe they live in the ether, or they like live inside Alchemoth itself. Like, it's pretty expansive, and like it's a really pretty area as well. And it's pretty fitting, just pretty much the whole like core of Bionis in general. So
yeah, no, I think Alchemoth is definitely again S, or like the highest point of A, if not, I agree with you, S. But again, on my part, the expansiveness plays slightly to a detriment of it. It makes sense in the scope of what eventually happens with Alchemoth, and I'll forever, praise the boldness of the decision to turn Alchemoth into this sort of apocalyptic hellscape almost after the events of Mechonis Gore. It's everything Alchemoth goes through and then represents after the fact that makes that zone so memorable to me. So yeah, I'm gonna go and agree with you, S tier.
yeah, it will probably be a low S just to be perfectly safe. But like, because I'm kind of a little bit biased, but like I just feel that way. Like, there's just so much lore with the Hyantia just embedded in Alchemoth itself. I mean, it's just such a nice, expansive area, and they even have their own freaking, like, way to protect themselves with rain. It especially looks great in rain, and, like, even, like, at night, where it's, like, they're shooting stars all the time there. It's really nice, like, just, like, the Hyantia just being contained in this one area. So Argentum Trade Guild, I would say it's a pretty decent area for Xenoblade 2 standards. It's where we start at the beginning of the game, and there's, like, a lot of stuff to actually do there. It's just a big old merchant shop, and, like, Bana runs the whole thing until, like, a certain side quest later in the game where he's just on a hamster wheel. But, like... a lot of side quests, like especially some blade quests, take a lot of advantage of Argentum Trade Guild's area. Like, I can think of a lot of blade quests that are memorable to me just taking place in Argentum Trade Guild. I'm a really big fan of Xenoblade 2 Chapter 1 especially, and Argentum Trade Guild really is a strong beginning because of that. I would probably even put it up at low A tier, low, like high B tier is probably a great choice.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you and place it. I think we should place it in the high B tier. I'm with you 100%. I think it's a great starting zone. I think a lot of people have a distaste for it because they associate it with the poor tutorialization, and some people don't enjoy the start of 2. And I think they overlap that onto Argentum for some reason. But I agree, there's quite a lot of quests. It's a very nice zone with some moderate changes as you go through it and you start seeing some things. A lot of blades have unique quests there. I think of Shiva's storage room. I think of Boreas, and I think of oh my goodness, Ursula's new groove starting there as well. There's quite a few things that really go on through Argentum, and it's nice seeing it get so much use for a zone that has only a few crust-ups to fight. But yeah, I agree. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I just remember Argentum Trade Guild because of how many blade quests there are and how many memories it brought as well. And you also forgot Finch, right? Like, one of Finch's best scenes is in Argentum Trade Guild as well, and I quite enjoyed it too.
Finch, Zenobia's up there too.
Yeah, Zenobia's quest, that's true. Like, just a lot of, like, memorable moments, even for, like, outside of the Xenoblade fandom, just take place in Argentum Trade Guild. So I really think it's a solid high B tier. So,
yeah.
Right. And next up is Aurora Shelf. Now, Aurora Shelf is kind of like a more condensed Gormott to me, but I personally think it's a really good area to just be starting out with in the DLC. Like, I really enjoyed, like, even at night with the Sophronia tree in there, but, like, you put Exile Fortress, as well as, like, having multiple elevations, including, like, Colony 9 area and the...
And like, Grandel.
And Grandel, especially, and the Gower Plains Bridge. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. Maybe I'll put it in post, but, it's just a huge area. Oh, yeah. King Agni's tomb there. It's like got a lot of memorable locations, and I feel like Aurora Shelf is just like the most fitting place to have for Xenoblade 3, and it expresses its themes very well, more so than the Asia region would ever be.
I think thinking back on it, the only thing I have to say is Colony 9's area is in a zone called Yesterdale, or what was it called, New Yesterdale or something like that. Which I don't think is covered in this tier maker, but we'll go ahead and we'll pair it all along anyway, I think. I think that's fine. I would argue, I know it's a little probably too early for another S tier, but I would say Aurora Shelf really encompasses the best of Xenoblade Chronicles zones. I would immediately place this in S. For everything that you've stated, for all that it represents, this is the trend that Xenoblade 3 Future Redeemed has. It's... all of the zones are beautifully condensed, a lot of things for fans who've played the previous games to look at, a lot of nostalgia factor, which, I pick up on immediately. But all of these zones combined aesthetic, gameplay, music, there's platforming in Redeemed. My goodness, no, they did this super well. They did Aurora Shelf wonderfully. I have to say, definitely an S contender for me.
Oh yeah, I'd say it's a high A tier, but like, yeah, that's actually kind of a good point. I'll be honest. It has a lot of encompassing stuff from pretty much any Xenoblade area, and it was just all put into just Aurora Shelf in general. So I can definitely agree to that. Yeah, I'd say probably like low S, probably high A tier. I think I'm just going to keep this in A tier for a little bit. A for Aurora Shelf, so we'll just see later on, though.
Alrighty.
Yeah. Anyways, let's go to an area that like a lot of people just don't like in general, and that's the Bionis Interior. It's regarded as like one of the most least interesting areas in Xenoblade 1. There's the music isn't the best. The like going through it is just such a chore to get through because like there's not a lot of fast travel points. If you fall down, you have to start from your last fast travel point. The enemies are really annoying. The freaking black liver bean is in that, which is pretty infinite. It's a pretty infamous collectible. The fight with Lord Thea at the end is highly regarded as not a very great fight in general, as well as Lord Thea as well. Like, Lord Thea's definitely not like a great character, so I would say D tier for Black Bionis Interior. So
yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. Bionis Interior is more than welcome to be our first D tier. Is it sad that I've partly enjoyed Lorthia's design? At least it looked better and definitive. But yeah, character-wise, definitely just I'm here to be a pretty obvious two-faced antagonist. I'm nice when I need to be, and then let my colors fly when I'm by myself or when the time's right, kind of deal. That's it. Very, very using. As for Bionis Interior itself, I actually made this in a post a few days ago where I compared Ether Mines with Bionis Interior because they're relatively linear grind spots, but unlike Ether Mines, you're going through some lit up caves and excavation areas, eventually leading into underground training facility. Then you're led into the mines itself, and the mines, it's teeming. This is a dangerous spot. The Mechon are everywhere, and you're just going down bit by bit, grinding along the way. Bionis Interior, the music always has felt unsettling to me, and I get that. It's meant to be an unsettling zone, the heartbeat of Bionis as you just walk along by, but you're stuck with a giant room that's just acid, like ether acid, and the mobs unsettling. Black liver bean slightly more tolerable to find and definitive thanks to its features, but I still remember the trauma of some 30 plus hours back on the base game of just trying to find this goddamn black liver bean back on the Wii.
Yeah, it's just
Not a fun
I would
time.
compare Bionis Interior to like a Xenogears dungeon in terms of its quality. Like, I know you haven't played Xenogears, Yig, but there's some pretty iffy dungeons in that game, and I like to compare Bionis Interior to like the final area in Xenogears, but I won't like get into that because we're not talking about Xenogears, we're talking about Xenoblade. So let's get on to the next area, which is Bionis Leg. I'll be honest though, Bionis Leg, I would say it's probably like a mid B tier area. Gower Plain is a great theme. It's a great area just to explore and just to see everything. But I'll be honest, it's kind of the place that Xenoblade is really known for in terms of like just keeping that same grassy area and just doing so very well with it. But I think other areas like it I think they're much better in this tier list. What do you think, Yig?
I would probably actually place it on the lowest end of A because it's just iconic and central. And as you're saying, it really set up apart for all the future Xenoblade titles to have these nice grassy expansive plains, Milik Meadows notwithstanding, but it's just iconic because I go back and I think about my first time playing Xenoblade Chronicles again on the Wii, fresh off of its release, and just you spend so long in Tephra Cave and you're already pretty interested after seeing Colony 9, and then they just hit you with Gar Plains, and you can explore all of it. You can walk around all of it. You can see all the unique mobs, see how the nighttime changes things up. I know a lot of people joke about a lot of Xenoblade Chronicles zones as being walking simulator, but to ignore the grandeur of Gar Plains is to really be dismissive of the open air element that a lot of developers try to play for. A moments of silence with you exploring and just taking in the vast wilderness. Like that's why I want to rate this a little bit higher. I'd say low A.
You're totally right, Yggdrasil. It's an area that, like, is pretty unprecedented for its time, especially. Just for it being an open environment, but just being an enclosed area. And there's some interesting landmarks as well. Like, there's a ton of waterfalls in there. There's even the iconic Ragwell Bridge. I think that's what it's called, Ragwell Bridge.
Ragwell Bridge, all the
Yeah.
guideposts.
Yeah, for sure. Like, there's a lot of iconic areas. So I guess I can just put it in low A. I think you're right.
I think it did get screwed by the bulk of Garp Plains this time, being screwed by Juju Arc.
Oh, for sure. And it just leaves a negative impression. So
yeah.
Yeah, I can totally believe that. So let's go on to Biona's Shoulder, which I don't know about you, but like Biona's Shoulder is like pretty big, and it encompasses pretty much a future connected. And I'll have to say,
yeah, because it's only that and Alchemoth again.
Yeah, I'll have to say, I'm gonna put that above Gower Plain. I think it's one of the better grassy areas that pretty much encompasses the greatness of Future Connected in its core. It was originally an unused area, and people wanted to explore it on their own in a new fashion. And here we go. Here we are with it, and it's pretty spectacular in general. I'd say maybe I'll just put it above Agnirtha in A tier, because personally, I feel like I don't want to say I'm biased because of the Future Connected having Melia stuff, but like you do like so much through it, like even within the 10-hour like time span that Future Connected has, it fits this area in with so much stuff, like a lot of side quests, the 12 Napapan that are in it, just trying to find them all. It's like a nice area to explore, and like the landmarks there are pretty evocative of Xenoblade Definitive Edition in general. I really enjoy this, and like oh yeah, and there's like more like multiple levels as well, and you like there's caves and stuff just going through it all, and there's like no loading zone in there either. I'd say it's one of the better like areas in Xenoblade in general.
I definitely agree with you there. Definitely above Agnirtha in that respect. So I think it was fair to say it's the top of A, 100%. I'm in the same boat as you. It's just generally a better Garp Plains, but it's really well contained, more things to do, side quests play off of it, and also, you know, a lot of those side quests, when they were thinking of Future Connected, they were thinking beyond just typical Xenoblade 1 quests. They wanted to try and make things a bit more memorable. You know, they got a bit of a hang for it with Xenoblade 2's side quests. And it showed in Future Connected that they wanted to make those changes. So I think they handled that zone, the Biona's Shoulder, really well. Especially, again, you know, I look back at the unused files on the Wii, and I see that early concept art for or that early concept design on those 480p YouTube videos years and years ago on the first ideas, and then to see what it turned into in Future Connected. The original, it looked like Napon ruins almost.
Yeah,
but it ends up, I assume they turned that into Grandel. So
no, that turned into Grandel afterwards, which has Nopon in it, but it's mostly like we obviously know a variation of multiple races, which I really do enjoy. It's such a nice area that in Xenoblade 1, just in general. So I really appreciate Biona's Shoulder because of that. So
yep.
Anyways, let's go ahead and go on to the Black Mountains. Like, I know a lot of people had some great first impressions of the Black Mountains. I'll be honest, though, low B tier for me. I'd say there's better snowy areas, and Capricorn Peak is definitely, like, on the low end. But I'd say, like, Black Mountains is probably, like, on the verge of being, like, high B tier. Not so sure about being above our Genom Trade Guild, but just being an area where it's just you go up a mountain and onto Prison Island, and even though it's a great area just because of that, I still think that maybe there could have been a little bit more to differentiate itself. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I just feel like we're just going from like one area, and there's like a bunch of like raids stuff is going on there as well. I just feel like it's a little bit convoluted to get through. And I know it does include, like, Valak Mountain and like Tantal stuff just kind of combine into it, and like has some familiar landmarks with it as well. I just don't think it's like a very. I don't think it's just a good area just to explore on its own, really.
I would have been more interested in the zone had there been more information on giants or more information on dragons, because we got those 3 dragons on the Black Mountain, and I'm just like, oh, dragons. But then I remember Xenoblade Chronicles 3 just throws in beating of dragons for Ouroboros exposition, and I get a little sad because when I think of Dragon King Alcar, now Dragon God Alcar, and there's no context for it, I'm just like, oh, come on, this is missed opportunities right here. Definitely better than Capricorn, 100%. I think it makes the most of Valak Mountain, and it makes the most of Tantal's design. It keeps it in a fairly constricted linear fashion with platforming, which I found really nice. It definitely picks up more towards the end of it than at the beginning. But yeah, I would argue high B to low A. We'll keep it in B tier for right now, though.
Yeah, I would say it's high B as well. B for Black Mountain. I feel like it's just Black Mountains, and like it's better than Cadencia and really nothing else. But the song that plays there rocks, though. I really enjoy it.
Music's beautiful, yeah. I would have liked to have seen more about Prison Island, especially how it was integrated. It looked nice. I just would have liked to have seen more about it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That was one of my biggest disappointments, is we didn't hear or know more Prison Island, more Giants lore, more anything lore. But
I mean, that's
it makes sense.
Evocative of Xenoblade 3 in general, but we can talk about that another time. It's not
For
part of the
sure.
tier list, though. So, and the next one is the Cadencia region. Now, even though the image says Aerithia Sea, I'm just going to lump the whole Cadencia region in there. And I'll be perfectly honest, very great region. I would say it would be probably, that's tough, actually.
You want to argue it is the best region for Xenoblade 3?
Yeah, I'm gonna say that. I would say the Cadencia region as a whole is a S tier region. It's probably the best water. It's the best water area in Xenoblade 3, and it just encapsulates a really underused portion of Xenoblade 3 with the boat mechanic. Having to go around to island, like Wind Waker style, is really nice. It also encapsulates parts of Sword March in general. But yeah, I really enjoy exploring everywhere, and like it's one of the more like brighter and more colorful areas of Xenoblade 3. And it also includes like the bottom of the Agnes Castle region, which includes the prison.
The Luxqaer prison. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it also includes Hope's Rest as well, which was the original like location for the city. Which, man, that part really got to me a little bit. It also, I don't know if you know about this, Yggdrasil, but there's actually a way to get out of bounds in the Cadencia region. Did you know about that?
I think I've seen that. I've seen a few out of bounds videos. I'm trying to remember the one for Cadencia itself.
So by Hope's Rest, there's like an area of rocks where you just jump up to, and like you can just hop over the boundary once you get all the way to the top in like a certain fashion. And I think,
yes, and then you can just go all the way down.
Yeah, and I've taken a lot of screenshots over there. I don't know if you've seen stuff on my Twitter lately, but basically a lot of my screenshots from there came from that out of bounds portion of the Cadencia region, and I find that to be really awesome. A way for us to just not just get out of the boundaries and just to explore everywhere, especially in the Cadencia region, is really great. It's really solid. And also the Cadencia region also includes the Lost Colony, and as well as Colony Mew as well, which are some of my favorite colonies in the entire game, just because of their lore aspect, and like the Lost Colony is is just pretty in general. I'd say Cadencia region is just a fantastic area in general. So
I think the only things I'm going to add to the is I just wish the start of it, that zone around Sword March itself, was a little bit bigger. It's the same aspect as with a lot of other zones in Xenoblade 3. You feel like a sort of linearity because, you know, all of the world is a giant circle, so you feel like trapped in that circle just a little bit. But I'm gonna agree with you wholeheartedly on it. I think it's a very beautiful zone. Finally, we can explore on a boat. And it was all pretty fun, and I definitely agree. I would rate Colony Mew in particular as one of my favorite colonies, and more distinguished colonies too. And that plays into the strengths of the zone. Ligarta Prison was gruelingly beautiful, if I had to say. If I know it's like a weird pairing of words, but that was the case.
Lagarte area also has Colony Zero as well, and its entire side quest chain is really good too, and it really encapsulates just that side quest chain in general. I'll just go on a tangent. It's extremely good because of how much representation it has with Xenoblade 3 as a whole, and it all takes place in a freaking prison. Just think about that for a second.
Yeah.
We can all agree that Cadencia is an easy S tier for all of us.
Lower. I would argue lower than Aurora Shelf, but still a strong S.
Now we're going to Calderas, which I'll be honest though, I haven't played Xenoblade X. I've only seen like footage of it, but Calderas is just like really shockingly like beautiful in its representation of just how drab and dark it is, and like how desolate feeling the whole place is from just what I'm seeing right here. What do you think?
I've played through Xenoblade X. I've played through it twice over, and for whatever reason, Calderas, maybe it's because it's the farthest away from NLA, but Calderas is the region I spent the least amount of time in. That being said, very beautiful zone, makes use of this sort of dark obsidian glow around it, the lava fuming, the mobs around it, fantastic designs, and just I do have to be honest, it's a wonderful zone to try and explore. It surprises me. Xenoblade X zones are very strong contenders overall because their zones are so expansive, so beautiful to explore. And one of Xenoblade X's core themes is exploration. That being said, I would argue Calderas is probably not my favorite of the X zones, and just for that, I'm gonna have to settle. Let's put it at the bottom of B for right now, the very bottom of B.
I would say that as well, just from that alone. I'd say the other regions, that which we'll get to later, are pretty great in general. But like Calderas is pretty great, but you just don't spend a lot of time in there. So, all right. So let's go to the Central Factory, which a lot of people really enjoy Mechonis for what it is, especially like just its middle area. I would say Mechonis would probably be at the low end of B tier, specifically because like it just feels so linear and there's not a lot of cutscenes in there. There is a place where you blow up a wall and like where you can get Fiora's ultimate weapon, but like in general, the Central Factory just doesn't have much besides that. I guess you can say you can make an argument about like the Apocrypha fight, but that even then the Apocrypha fight just doesn't really strike me as anything special. So, but some of the greatest moments, like some of the cutscenes later on, appear in Central Factory, and they're all pretty great in general. So,
yeah, I would be along the same lines. I could be along the same lines as that because it is a little linear in fashion. There's a few things to go off and check around. Like you can do some little bit of platforming, or you can go to the side and then you'll find the room where Vinea was fixing up the faces. So there's a few side things, but not all too much. I think it's more or less you're in line with the sort of rush and urgency the game has. You know, you gotta get through Central Factory, you gotta get to Yggdrasil as soon as possible. And then at the same time, it has one really good thing going for it, and it's just when you look at that chest and you see those whirring spires just going on in a circular fashion, and the little bit of sort of like sunshiny fog. I don't want to say like that, but it's like that atmosphere.
It's like the molten stuff coming right out from the chest or something like that.
Yeah.
Molten
So
like metal stuff.
so I'll give it the beauty of that. But yeah, a lot of people look forward to running through Central Factory each time. I don't know if I could say that I'm on that board, but I do enjoy it when I
it's
get
like the
there.
calm before the storm sort of thing. I didn't
Yeah.
really enjoy Central Factory, but when you get to Agniratha, it gets so good. So
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
So yeah, we'll stick it in B.
Yeah. So the city, I would say it's a really solid area for Xenoblade 3 standards. I'll put it in A tier. Here's the reason why. The city is like a really strong area, like lore-wise and story-wise in Xenoblade 3, because that's pretty much where like any human that wants to live a normal life can go to. Like it's been like that for like hundreds of years. Who knows how much Ionios was there, but the city was just there from the beginning, and it just keeps reforming, just like the rest of the people outside of the city are like. It's very evocative of the sort of theme Xenoblade 3 carries. And just the city itself that we see on Sword March, and then later on in a different area under Ionios. It's really solid. It's such a great antithesis on like Origin, especially because it's a giant sphere-like circle with a city encased in it, and Origin is basically the same way, but like to a more physical aspect of it. And it's such a differentiating area from the rest of Xenoblade 3 as well. So I'd say it's one of the most solid like regions in any Xenoblade game in general. So I would stick it in A tier, like just high, mid A tier.
Now, are we saying like higher than even Igniratha here?
Yeah, for sure. It's so much better. Well, we can explore pretty much everything in the city compared to Agniratha, where we can only explore part of it, though.
See, I'm glad you agree with me there, because from what I've been seeing recently, there's just not a lot of people who can appreciate what city offers, and I have to agree with you. It's so differentiating. It's purposely differentiating. It's unlike any other place that Ionios offers, and it's meant to be that. It's meant to be that haven. But what strikes it for me as well is within that haven, there's some political conflicts between the six houses, and you get there and you're the outlier. No, everyone's like, why are you here? You took Ouroboros from us. Like, can we really depend on people who are just gonna die anyway?
Right. There's just so much drama going in the city as well. It just makes it even more interesting.
And then they're trying to lay it low. It's like explore for a while, find out about us, find out about what we are. You want to see how babies are made. It's also tastefully done that it just really adds to it. And I do agree. City is just that one beautiful outlier in Xenoblade 3 that I'm happy to go back to as compared to most other colonies within that game.
No, I couldn't agree more. The city is just such a underrated just area in Xenoblade in general. Like, just how it ties into the themes so well. And especially, like, where we found the founder statues and people were speculating on that as well. It's just such a very memorable area in that aspect. So probably like definitely goated area in Xenoblade 3 for sure. So let's go ahead and go to the Cliffs of Mortha. On its own, it's not really the greatest area. There are some great moments at the very end of Cliffs of Mortha, probably one of the best moments in the game. But just on its own, you got a lot of skill checks that you have to go through. You have to go through a lot of annoying enemies and stuff. Like, and it's like extremely short as well, and like risk of falling off and stuff. I don't think it's a really great area in Xenoblade 2. I'll be perfectly honest. So
Yeah, I don't find it all too enjoyable either. Definitely the ending is there for that section that is just peak for Xenoblade, but in this one the journey is not all too good. When you get there, when you get to that destination, then yes, but the journey itself not so much. A lot of linearity. Again, yeah, you called out just right those skill checks. I don't look forward to doing Morth every time, even though it's relatively short. I'm just not a fan of it.
yeah, Chapter 7 is one of my favorite chapters in Xenoblade 2, and when just going through the Cliffs of Mortha, I remember just having to start, like, from a long ways back if you happen to just fall down and die, and then you have to go back to like a previous landmark, and it's just
Yeah,
so
and some
far
of those
away.
landmarks aren't those. Yeah, they're not in a good spot. I agree. There's only one or two I would argue that are decent, but not all too much.
Yeah, it's just like such a trek to go through the first time, and I just don't really look forward to that. Especially jarring from like one of my favorite areas in Xenoblade 2 in general, which we'll eventually get through in probably like another 40 minutes. Who knows? It's a lot. We got like a lot of time here, so. So our next area, I would say, is also probably like another high C tier area, and that's Colony 6. There isn't really much going on over there. Like, we just go there, go to the ether mines, come back up, and like do other things, then come back to do Colony 6 reconstruction, and just head on out. Like, it's just not a particularly interesting area, like, at the beginning. It gets better, like, at the last third of the game, but, like, all I remember just going to this area is just doing the Colony 6 reconstruction stuff, and, like, a bunch of side quests in there as well. It's just not, like, a particularly interesting area just to, like, explore, because it's just so small.
If I had to argue, I wish we could put Colony 6 pre-construction and Colony 6 like post 100% completion. But even then, you'd only be spending time in the colony itself and not the zone around it, which is at best. I have some personal trauma collecting the items off the wisps early game for, I believe her name is Olga. Yeah, that NPC. Wants some wisps, and she wants like 6 of them, and it's just like, oh, such a mess. I've had bad luck.
Those wisp beads are just extremely hard to find from those, and like I think like 3 or 4 quests need those wisp beads. So I always remember having to just grind over there just for those wisp beads. But
yeah, but then as you work on reconstruction and the zone picks up more beautifully, you want to stay inside colony. I like chilling in Colony 6 when it's fully reconstructed. That's just me. I would definitely say,
I mean, there's some pretty great moments. Like, one of my favorite moments in Xenoblade 1 happens in Colony 6 with the Metal Face encounter, and Dunban just coming in and Dixon just doing their thing and just helping us and stuff. But, like...
And then, even after, there's also the talk with Melia and Fiora. Yeah, no, just... the cutscenes itself in 6 are pretty fine, in all honesty.
It's just not the greatest area just to go around, really, and that's why we chose to have it, like, probably at high C tier for me. So...
Yeah.
On the total opposite, though, Colony 9 is such an iconic area of Xenoblade 1 in general that I don't think it could go anywhere else besides A tier. And, like, you've got Outlook Park, you've got, like, the wreckage site where Shulk started the game with. Like, we got all the anti-air batteries and stuff. It's such a great beginning area and a beginning town, pretty much in any video game I've played. It's such a great area to come back to for side quests as well. Like, Gemman's stall is there. And then Shulk's lab, you can do a few things there. I don't know. Colony 9 is such a memorable area in Xenoblade in general, and having it probably at A tier is probably the safest bet, I'll be perfectly honest. So
I think it did a really wonderful job of setting, again with Xenoblade games, the scope and size and the feeling that if you see it, you can go there. I think it handled that just quite wonderfully. And then to see such like a beautiful town and really exploring every like nook and cranny of it. A lot of NPCs in Colony 9 are very memorable and endearing to me. And it's just it's such a wonderful starting experience, Colony 9.
I would say though, I would put it in a higher A tier if it wasn't for going to Agora Shore. That's like the only like reason.
True that.
There's no fast travel point over to at Agora Shore.
And you would
It's
expect
just
there to
so-
be one too.
Yeah, I know.
You
You
would
go
expect
there
one.
like a few times, so I know it's kind of rather nitpicky. I would probably keep it at low A tier, regardless.
No,
of
that's a
that,
solid
so-
nitpick. Yeah, it's a solid nitpick. I would say right below Bionis Leg, in my opinion.
Right.
Actually, no, I'm gonna raise it above Bionis Leg
No,
because it's a
no.
Bionis Leg with things to do.
Oh no, I totally agree, and that's where I put it. So, all right. So next up is Elysium, which Chapter 10 in Xenoblade 2 is such a memorable chapter to me, and like it has a whole bunch of other things going on. It's such a desolate area. The church is such a such a nice serene area, but it was originally just such a green and grassy area just from like Rex's point of view and like in flashbacks and whatnot. And then when you go there, it's such a desolate area. It's such a huge contrast, and and there's like broken up playground equipment there. There's just it's such a metaphor for like what Klaus has done to the world and what he's done to just this place in general, that like memories just can't be found in this area. And it was originally a place that like everyone it just came from and got along with together, but it just didn't turn out to be the case. And the only remaining thing that's standing is with that being the church. Is just so evocative of just Xeno and just Xenoblade in general. Just the church just standing tall and ringing its bell, trying to get Rex and his friends to come over there to talk with Klaus. And the whole rest of Elysium, after the whole Klaus stuff, it's just so tense, just leading up to the final fight of the game, like having to fight those robots that I can't remember what they're called, but it's just such a strong area to me in Xenoblade 2 that I just can't help but going back to. So I would put it like probably in low S tier. What do you think?
Yeah,
Jake?
I think that's a fair statement. All of Elysium, all of the world tree itself, you know, you go in there to see it's just a to see its mechanical interior, raising it all the way up. The stakes grow higher as you climb. You realize it's just, you know, it's like, what is going on? This isn't it's not clearly a tree. I mean, it is in the metaphorical sense. Yeah, and of course I share my name with it, Yggdrasil, and the world tree Yggdrasil, but then getting to Elysium itself, building up from all of that, and then you get to Elysium and it betrays your expectations. You're not in paradise, you're in this arid hellscape that's just a forgotten memory. The church bell ringing is in the distance for no one. It's very somber. It betrays everything that the cast has worked up to. And, you know, getting to the promised land only for it to not be what you expected is a pretty common staple. But you to see how Xenoblade 2 worked it out, then you go down to find this sort of extra passage leading down to Klaus himself. I'd have to say, I'd have to agree. It's a wonderful zone.
Right.
I wouldn't personally say S though. I would say A, but yeah.
I just think it's such a I think it's just such a memorable area once you reach like chapter 10, and it just hits you, just this huge area that just like is so desolate, and you're just expecting it to just be so perfect. And I especially remember this on my first playthrough of how like empty I felt just going over there and just exploring, and like all the characters just have something to say about how desolate Elysium is. I just find that such a memorable part of Xenoblade 2 in general. So I'm gonna put it in low S tier for that reason. I would say if it would be higher if you can like explore more, but like at low S tier is such a safe area, just a safe place for it.
Alrighty.
And now we go to Era C. It's such a fantastic like water area. I love the floating islands, and I just love how huge it is, especially. I think it's one of the better Xenoblade 1 areas, personally. I just love the atmosphere with, like, the sky sometimes when they're shooting stars and rain. It's just such a... It has such a nice atmosphere. I know a lot of people don't like having to go through the whole entire map just by swimming, just to fill the whole map out. Guys, you could just do that by just finding every location. You don't have to just go through the water and fill it out and waste like
guilty.
Hours.
Hours guilty. I did that for my first time.
Oh, wow.
First time, come on, you know, fresh out of high school, the game is not really known. I didn't know that aspect. I didn't pick up on that. So that's what I did.
I knew that, and I still haven't just went through the whole entire heresy. Maybe one day for a future video, I'll just like do something with that. But Eric, man, I really enjoy like just like even like the islands that are on the ground are just such a memorable area. Like I remember a few unique monsters that are on there that are memorable, like Hodes and
the Hode Island.
The Hode Islands, and like a few like the Chromars, and like one of the areas, like you remember Stormy Belkanon, right?
Oh yeah.
That had that annoying sleep spike. That was really annoying, but it was fun at the same time because like you can have one character with high sleep resist gems on it, and you can just grind affinity just from that unique monster alone. It was great. And it also has a lighthouse, and I'm a pretty big sucker for lighthouses. So, yeah, I would say Era C is just a mid A tier. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I would put it higher on the A tier because I just always go back to, again, you know, a C on the head of the Bionis, and it challenged my imagination the first time to think of it. And it's like, you know, it's like we're here on two giant titans, and then Aerith C, honest to God, blew me away seeing the floating capital and the floating islands. But then you see it at nighttime, and if you're lucky, the aurora hits. I'm gonna raise it up a notch. I'm gonna put it between Bionis Shoulder and the city. That's where I'm gonna put it.
That's where I put it too, because yeah, you're right. Especially in Frontier Village, like you see the like water on the very top of Frontier Village, and like you always wondered,
faint hint of it.
You always wondered what is up there, and you see like just a huge amount of space. It like once you go through it, like you originally thought like it's a small little puddle in the sky. No, it's expansive. And it has floating islands, like so much water, and like has a lot of like, oh yeah, I should also remember it has wind turbines on it as well. It has like the islands are very island-like.
A lot of those islands do have things do have gimmicks or things.
Yeah, just going through a lot of coves in the middle just to find secret locations. Like it's such a nice area to explore, even with it being so huge. So. But yeah, I agree. It should be in like high mid A tier. So let's go ahead and go to our next location, which is Aethermind. Aethermind. Man, I can't say words today. I said at the beginning of this video that I don't really care for a lot of Xenoblade 1 locations, and the Aethermind is pretty evocative of that. It's pretty well known within the community as well that it's just not the greatest area in the world, especially like you can't even go back to the later half after you're done with it. You're just stuck with the beginning half, which is just a huge confusing maze on its own. Nothing really stands out to me here besides just a big giant turbine in the middle near the end of it, and just a bunch of ether caves. And that's pretty much it. Really, I don't know. The cutscenes in there are like some of my favorites in the entirety of Xenoblade 1, and I find it funny that our favorite cutscenes are in our least favorite areas. Like, we got, especially in Colony 6 and C tier, we got the metal face fight, and then Cliffs of Mortha, we got the peak ending of it all. And then Aethermine has a lot of great cutscenes that are spread out through it, like Shulk thinking about, like, he has to confess these visions for the most part. Like, he's wondering what people are gonna think of him when he confesses it all. And then Ryan comes in just saying, hey, don't worry, you have to speak your mind to us, and then that's how you get through here, which I find that to be a pretty memorable moment. Otherwise, the Ether Mind is just kind of eh. Also, at the very end, Juju gets crucified too, so that's one of the books.
Yeah, no, another Juju rescue mission, count me out. I made my statements on Ether Minds when I tried bringing up the parallel with Violence Interior. It's definitely the better of the two. I think it's okay. I think it's fair, but it's not particularly memorable. It's very straightforward. It's just a grind spot when you get to the central area. And that's really all I gotta say on it, you know? It's good for a couple levels in the mid-20s to get you up to Zord. That's all. That's all it is. I'm gonna put it, I would say right above Agnes Castle region, because at least there's a few things to do and a few bits to explore of the Ether Mine.
I personally would just put it up on high D tier, I'll be perfectly honest.
Yeah, you'd rather the one room of Agnes Castle region above all of Aethermine?
I mean, remember, Agnes Castle region has the best cutscenes in Xenoblade 3.
Yeah.
So,
okay, you know what?
So
fair.
Hard. It's just so hard to say, so.
Fair. I'm gonna put it personally on my end, on the bottom of C. Mm-hmm. I think Bionis Interior deserves its own punishment zone.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know about that, though.
Yeah, alrighty.
Now, the Fallen Arm, I honestly think it's probably like a mid, maybe a, no, I think it's mid B tier area. Nothing really stands out to me. It's just like a pretty decent area to explore and nothing else. Love how basically the area is just laid out as just a giant hand. But the only thing I can just picture in the area is just the distant fingertip and the Machina village in the middle and all the stuff that you can do over there, which isn't a lot of side quests in Xenoblade 1, but still I think it's just a more middling area in Xenoblade 1. Not to hurt on it a lot. I really enjoy the areas of Xenoblade 1. But there's a hit or misses, and the Fallen Arm is kind of in between, so.
Yeah. For me, when I think of Fallen Arm, I think of those starting cutscenes when you're there between the different sects of the group, especially Dunban, Melia's, and Ricky's. So that bumps it a bit for me. I think the beach area as well, Shulk and Fjord is where they landed. That beach stands out to me as well. But I agree, you know, we got the hidden village, and then we have the distant fingertip holding it. And again, you know, the scale of Xenoblade 1 fits in so well, just climbing for minutes on end to reach that distant fingertip. But then you look down and you see the whole region spread out over the palm of the Titan's hand. Yeah, very beautiful. And then looking at Bionis from the fingertip itself, you know, it elicits a lot of feelings in me, I gotta be honest. I would also put it in B tier though. For all of that though, I would put it also in B tier. I'll say above Argentum for me personally. Actually, no.
I put it under Black Mountains.
Yeah.
Above Central Factory. I'd say it's mid in that area, so.
Yeah, I'll put it smack in the middle. slightly better, like slightly less to do than Argentum, obviously, but very beautiful zone.
All right. Next up is the Fornis region. The Fornis region. I don't know if you will agree with me on this, Yig. I'd say it's probably like one of the most interesting areas in Xenoblade 3, just for the fact that it's split up to 3 areas. Like in the middle, you have the Aegis Wilderness. On the east side, there's the Na Desert, and on the west is what's it called? That foggy area with the Hidden Machina Village music. I'll probably edit something on screen just to show what it is, because I can't remember on it. But we were just talking about the distant fingertip. This is a better way to portray the distant fingertip to me. You can see pretty much the whole entire like Dana Desert and the Aegis Wilderness from the distant fingertip.
It's all there, and then you can keep going south. You can keep going more south still, and you reach even further areas. It's
the southern area, like those 2 areas.
Ribby Flats.
Yeah, Ribby Flats, and there was one other area. Like, it's such a huge area that is like rich in like so many different kinds of biomes, and they all like fit in so well in this area. I'd say it's a pretty high up there just for that alone. So
yeah, I would argue in the A tier. Maybe not Colony 9 level, but above Bionis Leg, without a doubt. So much to do, so much to explore. A lot of different themes playing on there, a lot of environmental choices playing on there. So yeah, that's where I'd put it. Yeah,
and like it's got some of my favorite colonies as well, like colony
430 Iota.
Oh yeah, 430 and Iota. Yeah, all of those are really good. I mean, a lot of people just don't really like the colonies because of like how it just doesn't have its own central theming to it. But I enjoy it for how they are, really, and they fit in with their environments very well, especially with Colony 30, how it's just enclosed in that one cave. So.
Yeah, I think all the asset reuse weighs on a lot of people, but when I think of placement environmentally, I think it makes sense. Actually, though, I do think Colony Iota is the weakest of the colonies in terms of setup and design, but 30 itself to be placed in that cave, and 4 has reasons for being stationed out there that fit into the story, so I think those make sense.
It's pretty central to the Fornis region, which... like we already know that like Mobius wanted to just try to get at it the most, so personally. So and yeah, anything else to say about the Fornis region? I really love Dana Desert, by the way. I love how it's just portrayed in general, even though it's kind of like the short area. It's such a Breath of the Wild like area, I'll be perfectly honest, but I find it better than a lot of Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom's areas because of just
I couldn't make sense of
them all are.
Yeah, I couldn't make sense of the day theme, but when that night theme hits and you get a lot more of that Tornin instrumentals playing in that theme, I felt right at home there. It was beautiful to explore. I gotta be completely honest. So yeah.
All right, I'd say Fornis is pretty good there. So let's go ahead and go on to Frontier Village, which
S tier.
Oh yeah.
S tier for me. I'll be the one to start off on this one. S tier, and anyone who says otherwise that Frontier Village does not deserve to be an S tier, I am sorry. Frontier Village is the epitome childhood dream of a town sprawling within the insides of this giant tree that goes up for layers and layers and layers. It's brilliant. I gotta be honest, the music is so warm and inviting. The climb inside and around the tree to reach the top, but the village itself is hustling and bustling.
Yeah.
It's so endearing. Anyone who says anything less than an A, I'm sorry, you're wrong, but for me, it's an S.
I would say Frontier Village is pretty great overall. I really enjoy all the cheerfulness and the Napon singing and just having it being feeling so alive and full of itself. Like, it has some of the more memorable and funny moments in the game, especially cutscene wise, and like the music is also really nice as well. So yeah, I would say it's high A tier for me just from that alone. And like the Nopon trading side, or not trading, but the Bana side quest in there mainly takes place in Frontier Village, and we got excited like the pretty great boss fight at the end too. And like I distinctly remember the side quest where like the Nopon is trying to get to her lover at the bottom of the tree that is by that one pool, and you have to just decide if you want to make that one Nopon on top of the tree grow bigger with a pollen orb, I believe, or just to have his girlfriend just grow bigger so you can catch that Nopon, so the Nopon won't die. And that side quest alone is just so memorable to me. There's a lot of memorable side quests in Frontier Village, especially for Xenoblade 1 standards, which isn't saying much because a lot of the side quests aren't typically the best in that game, but I digress. So
yeah, but I definitely think it's fantastic as a zone. One of my favorites. Yeah. That's my bias. So for my bias, I'm throwing it an S.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, high A tier for me. I think it's good just being right there. So, now let's go to Galahad Fortress. And I know we keep saying that like a lot of the Mechonis areas are pretty mid in general. I'm gonna be perfectly honest, pretty good area on its own. Just
I'm 100% with you.
Tier. So, the music's great, especially that sticks out to my mind, and like having to go through multiple levels and having to stop like the ether and trying to save Fiora, especially. I think when you get here is when the game really wants you trying to save Fiora from Egil himself, and once you reach the very end, it just kind of all collapses on its own in a good way. So I really enjoy that part of Galahad Fortress personally.
Yeah, the end of Galahad itself was really strong, and then both for Galahad and Sword Valley, I sort of think of our team as like an early infiltration unit, there to sow as much chaos as possible. So I definitely think that is the case. I would say it's fair, yeah, low B.
Now, I've been thinking about this for a bit, and I don't know how you feel about me, just where I place it in the tier list, Yig. I think Gormod Province is the best starting area in Xenoblade, just in general. Higher than Gaur Plain, and like higher than freaking Aegis Wilderness. And I'll be honest, Aurora's Shelf doesn't come close to it. And by the way, I'm counting Gormod both in Torna and Xenoblade 2, which both of them are equally as great, I feel, in terms of their style and storytelling. But let me start with Xenoblade 2 first. I know people
I'm interested to see.
I know people love to complain about like the whole map, and I agree. That's like one of my least favorite parts about Gormod is like the map itself is just hard to navigate because of how many levels there are on this Titan. Like, I was very surprised just of how like versatile this Titan is for a beginning area and how much there is to explore on it your first time around. And it gets even bigger when you, in later on in the game, doing some of the side missions and whatnot. Some of the Chapter 4 stuff, which is okay, like, I'd say it's alright, but, like, there's other things as well. Like, I really love Torrigoth. I think that's, like, one of the best areas, personally, in Xenoblade, because it's such a strong starting area, like Colony 9, but it's rich in just like diversity in general. It's not just Gormati living there, but like, well, mostly Gormati, but there's also Ardanians living there, and like the agriculture in there is really nice to see, and especially the way they try to do their agriculture there, and like having to explore just using like the tides of the Cloud Sea just to explore everywhere. And Oh, it's just such a great area to go through. Like every time, even though I really don't like how the map is, it's just such a great time just exploring Gormott. Like one of the more fun areas in the game just to go through.
I would give it a bump up, definitely due to just Torgoth, 100%. I prefer base 2's version over Torna's, if I have to be honest. But I don't think it deserves S personally, but I think definitely the high end of A. I personally think Shoulder is better, but again, Torgoth being that strong contender.
I think the Bionic Shoulder is such a great area in Future Connected. I just think Gormott like is just such more expansive. Well, it's smaller in scope, but I just I feel like it just sticks out in my mind as like the tentative Xenoblade grassy area that is just fun to go around and explore in like caverns and whatnot, just like in Bionic Shoulder. And there's just so many levels to go through. Man, it's just hard to choose though.
It is with a lot of these, you know.
Now going to Torna, I actually should disagree. I really enjoyed what Gormott in 500 years ago looked like. Like, you can expect it to not be as big as it is 500 years later. And it's such a nice area for what it is. It has some great it has a great remix as well. Like, both Gormott's themes are fantastic. And also the desolation of Torgoth especially got to me. Like, you would expect just an area that we know so well, like, get to me so hard. So, like, especially on repeat playthroughs, it got to me even more. It's mainly because I like Laura a lot, but at the end, it's just so strikingly sad. So,
no, I can agree. For me, it's more or less I enjoy Torgoth and remember everything from Torgoth a lot more. That seeing it so dour hurts me. Obviously, it's in the past and it's thriving now, which is better, but you know.
For sure. And now let's get to the High Entia Tomb, which the High Entia Tomb I also like to say is a Xenogears dungeon just because of how not the best it is alone. Maybe I can put it in like low B tier, high C tier. I think I might put it in low B tier because of bias, but like the High Entia Tomb is not the most standout dungeon in the game. Like Galahad Fortress, I'd say even for like how short it is, it's a much more concise, more memorable location than the High Entia Tomb. What the High Entia Tomb really amounts to is basically just so much lore about the High Entia, and like the first part where Melia goes through it and has to fight a few guys, and then like the rest of the gang has to go through like just the underground, having to climb all these like annoying walls just to get to Melia at the very end. It's just so linear in that aspect, and I don't know if I can put it any higher than low B tier, really.
I would throw it in C, to be completely honest. I would put it below Cliffs of Mortha even, because yeah, it just plays in that linearity. It's all like the kind of lighting they put in there actually hurts my eyes sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. The only things it's got going for it, in my opinion, funny Rhine scene, of course, and it makes use of hidden rooms not on the map. That I can get behind, but everything else, no. I don't look forward to High Entia Tomb. Anytime a side quest has me go back in there, I try and see if I can just trade the items with someone else first. But yeah, no, I do not like going in High Entia Tomb one bit. For that, I'm gonna put it low C.
I'm pretty biased though and put in low B, but I can agree on that. Like a lot of the aspects of it are just I feel like are Xenogears dungeon-esque to me, so I would just put it in like high C tier for me. So, and now let's go ahead and go on to Indal. Now, I honestly think Indal is a really solid just area in general. There's not a lot to it, but it's just solid, and like a lot of stuff happening with like within the story of Xenoblade 2 and just the Titan itself in general of how Amalthus is portraying the Titan in general. Like, if I think of Indal, I think of Amalthus and how much of a great villain and how he's portrayed in Xenoblade 2 in general is just all encapsulated in Indal's strengths in general. Like the church aspect, the refugees just being stranded on the Titan, a lot of like relationships that like all the other countries are aligned with as well. Like they're all aligned with Indal pretty well, and like we don't really know the backhanded of it until like chapter 9 when everything gets revealed at the end. But like Indal is just such a nice location, but like I would just say it's like bottom of A tier for me, really, because like it's such a spectacular area. It's just like I don't know how much I can recommend it because of how long we're there and the fact that we can't go back to it after chapter 9. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'd personally put it high B, right below Argentum, if only because again it's beautiful. It makes its points very poignantly with Amalthus and the refugees, but it's like, no, look how pristine everything else is. Listen to how beautiful the choir is. But if you look at the message that the choir is singing, it's actually rather dour. That it's like we're the chosen ones. And it's like, well, what about these refugees that are right here? All the cutscenes involved in Indal are great. The only low point I have is really just like the Emperor Niles assassination attempt. It's
that was
not really the best. Not it's whatever.
I wouldn't really count it as part of like the Indal part in general, but yeah, it's kind of a low point.
Just that it takes place in Indal and whatnot. Yeah, I would rate it just below Argentum, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say it's probably at the bottom of A tier, and I think it's gonna just stay at the bottom of A tier personally. So, hey, it's all right. So, and now we get to the land of Moritha. Oh my gosh! Like, once the beginning of chapter 9 hits, it really hits. I'd say it's high A tier, probably under Frontier Village for me personally. Just. It's not long or anything, but it's strikingly different from pretty much every area in this game. And, like, how familiar it is and, like, how that the way of how humanity went. And if you play Future Redeemed especially, you know what this really was. And it ended up to just be this prosperous land that had people in it, and it just feels so somber and sad just seeing it in this desolate place. And like the Goldos especially are like some of my favorite enemies in Xenoblade. I wish Goldos would come back again because they're just such a fascinating enemy to fight. They're kind of reminiscent of Gnosis in that sort of respect from Xenosaga, but like they're a lot scarier and like threatening for one, and just they evoke such a strong scary theme to it all. And like the bottom of the Torrent Titan just being a part of it too is just like you get to see its insides and everything, and the reveal from Jin about how like where blades just came from and like how they could have grown to be like different kinds of people, just like how Mortha is. It's so evocative and just really hits the right beats for me. So
yeah, the Torn Carcass is definitely unsettling. That whole zone's unsettling. Again, back to Bionis Interior, the unsettling atmosphere and environment, but it plays so much more in Moritha, especially. It's we least expect to see something like this in the world of 2, and then to see again what's become and what it was once in Future Redeemed only adds to it further. So yeah, I would tend to agree. Visually, summarily, it's a fantastic sad zone.
For sure,
tragic zone.
It's such a tragic area, and this location is presumed to be where Klaus lived and breathed, and like knowing that all of the colleagues and the people that used to be in these cities are just decrepit monsters that like pretty much haunt this place too. Like, man, it really does hit. So
That being said, though, I'm not the biggest fan of exploring it per se. I'm fine with it conceptually, and I like the Goldos as well. But exploring it, some questionable skill checks, like a little bit of annoying verticality in some sections, but otherwise okay.
but those are optional though. Like it's not the best for exploring, but like a lot of the skill checks there are optional, and like you can just go find goodies and stuff in there. But a lot of the game, if you want to explore, you have to do skill checks anyway. And it's not like the Cliffs of Mortha where it's required to actually use skill checks to progress. So I think the Land of Mortha just hits that respect for me. So next up is Letheria. Now Letheria is it's hard to really say about Letheria. Like I want to put it in S tier, but like I guess I can explain why in a second here. I'm actually gonna put it above Era C. I used to really love Letheria and its atmosphere, as well as Fonset Village in general, and like how like each area is split in half. But man, it's kind of a trek to get through Letheria, especially like it doesn't have a lot of accessible fast travel points, especially
Yeah, the
like,
first time can be rough.
Yeah, especially like in the second half where fast traveling is kind of difficult to go through, and especially since a lot of side quests appear in it, and there's a lot of kind of annoying enemies in there, like there's this one unique monster in the first part. It's like this Jagras unique monster. I really don't like that unique monster, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But that's to say, really. Letheria is such a great region. Everything around it, like the cloud, going through the cloud wall, is such a cool setting. But I don't know. I just find it to just be a pretty high mid A tier area and nothing else, really. Nothing really stands out to me besides like Fonset Village and just the emotional moments over there, really. So
I think again it's a matter of concept. You know, these giant jellyfish like titans, and they're reaching out to one another through their tentacles. It's all, I quite enjoy that. And again, Fonset, yeah, absolutely beautiful. The sea of clouds has never been so more inviting to observe through just the Leftherian archipelago. So I give it that. But yeah, a little rough on the not rough, annoying to just go through all those all through all that walking and get through all of it. But once you're there and you're just doing things on your own pace, I think it adds up a lot better.
Yeah, conceptually,
music really adds to it.
Conceptually, it's S tier, but going through it all, I would say kind of drags it down a little bit. But it's definitely better than Era C in general, which is why I put it right next to it. So overall, just a really fantastic area just to go through, and even the cloud wall in the middle is just a giant titan, which we'll get into later, how gigantic this titan is. So next up is Magna Forest. Now, if this was me like 5 years ago, this would be high A tier, but for me, I would say it's probably like, yeah, mid B tier, I would say, like above Black Mountain, under Argentum Trade Guild. I think Magna Forest is such a wonderful location because of how dense like everything feels, and there's this like mist or something that like goes around Magna Forest that like it just feels so nostalgic to me. I don't know why. The whole misty part of it, just going through it all. There's also the Grey Magna Fall, such an iconic Xenoblade location. Walking through the bridges on it as well. It has King Agni's tomb, which is such a really dense lore-filled area. Like, it has giant lore in it, too.
Optional too, but when you take the time to go for it, absolutely.
Yeah. Like, I feel like it drags off past, like, the Magna Falls and the Agni Tomb stuff. I feel like it kind of drags off a little bit for me. The rest of the area, I feel, is just like half of it's peak And then like the other half of it is just whatever, I guess. Just flowing rapids. There's like Hodes and stuff that you can fight, or Lugas and stuff. There's some Dinosauros that you can fight. They're pretty threatening enemies, but like nothing really standoutish in particular. There's some great Melia moments like in that section though, but I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a mid kind of area for Xenoblade areas in general, so I'll just call it the mid area of Xenoblade. So, what about you, Yig?
Again, nostalgia factor hits, bias hits with Xenoblade 1. I quite like Machina, but I loved it a lot more in Definitive. It definitely stood out to me in the base game, don't get me wrong, but Machina and also Satorl Marsh suffer from like the low poly fog issues. Definitive fixed that, so I would rate Machina a little bit higher. I would rate it above Argentum as well.
Yeah, see, I like the fog, the misty feeling of that fog in Machina Forest.
Yeah,
like,
it
really
handled a lot
it.
better with Definitive.
But like I do realize like the polygons loading in is not the best part of it personally, but I don't know.
I would rate
like
it at the top of B, even above Black Mountains. If I had to be completely
you're
honest.
right. I'll go ahead and put it above Galahad Fortress. There we go. High B tier. I think that's like the highest it can go for B tier standards. So yeah, I would say that. And then like a half hour later, we're gonna totally change that.
Yeah.
No spoilers or anything. But next up is Mechanis Core, or wait, no, it's not Mechanis Core. It's Mechanis Field. A lot of people really enjoy Mechanis Field, and I can agree. Mechanis Field generally is a solid A tier, low A tier Xenoblade area. I really enjoyed exploring through it. The music's great. Having to like activate the elevators and then having to, I love having fun on those conveyor belts.
The conveyor belts, the slide outside.
Yeah, the people movers, and then you can go outside of Mechanis Field and like you can find that secret Mechanis hideout if you go through the scar that's on the Mechanis too. When you're inside, it's really nice, but when you go outside is when it gets really great. Like you can just see
and then
everything.
you see this.
You can just
and then
see
you see the scope
world.
of how far you go up.
Yeah,
and then it's like barely at the shin or something like that.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that aspect of Mechanis Field, especially, and like a lot of people can say the same way to it. So, and also something that I feel is underrated about Mechanis Field in general is that you can skip a lot of the enemies just by going a shortcut, like to the side. It's like such a nice idea if you don't want to fight too many enemies. And it does that a little bit in Central Factory, but like it only does it to a certain extent.
Yeah, well, especially because Sword Valley onward, look at the enemy variety. It's Mechon and Mechon and Mechon and Mechon, and you get a little fatigued from it. So the idea that you can go past some of these was a nice break for a bit.
Yeah, of course you do have to fight some Mechon to progress, but like I feel like the idea of just going out to the side and just skipping Mechon fights entirely is just such a nice thing for the player to just go through and whatnot.
Yeah.
So now Mora Dane is interesting. It was one of my favorite Xenoblade 2 areas, but I'll be perfectly honest, I don't really like it as much anymore. I feel like the desert area is just kind of, I don't know, it feels kind of generic feeling to me. Like the factory setting is kind of iffy, and it even has
the music goes hard for such a okay zone.
Yeah, for sure.
Not even okay, a little less than okay, in my opinion.
Yeah, it has the old factory, which a lot of people just don't like. Me included. Not really evocative of anything. The best area, though, is Alba Cavendish, which I really love Alba Cavendish, but why do you have to be in such a desolate area? It's kind of sad if you think about it that I'm kind of criticizing Mora Dane for that, because
I think Alba Cavendish itself is fine, but my biggest disappointment with Mora Dane is, and we saw this in Gormott. There was little to no play in verticality, and it's like you'd think in a Titan that's literally standing upright, we could make more use of that, but no.
Yeah, it's very disappointing in that regard. So
yeah, like instead of having it be like desert, make it more craggy sort of vibes. I don't know.
Maybe have like a lava section or like areas with poison, but you just like go through desert.
Like I like the idea. There's hot springs. I like the idea of the hot springs on it, but my goodness, like it needed more.
I mean, you go inside some places, but then like it's just another kind of desolate kind of area afterwards. So I don't know. I think that this may be controversial to some people, saying that putting Moradane like in the middle of B tier, but I don't know. It's just great.
Oh, you're more generous than me. I was gonna put it lower than B. I was gonna put it at I was gonna put it in C.
I can't do that because like I like Alba Kavanich and the music of Moradane, to just not put it in C tier, but otherwise it would just be in C tier as just this huge area. So
yeah, alrighty.
Yeah, I think that's fine enough, really. I may, you know what? I think I might put it above Calderis, and then under Central Factory. So
okay.
Speaking of Xenoblade X locations that I don't know about, New Los Angeles. How do you think about that, Yggdrasil? Because I haven't played Xenoblade X, and the next two areas are going to be Xenoblade X areas that I don't know of. So how do you feel about New LA?
So a bit of bias because I live in California and LA is central to me. I'd have to be biased. It makes sense to me. I would put it as an A, not an S, but an A. It's very solid. X has a very good precedent for side quests and world building that's present in LA, but there's not all too much outside of side quests to do in LA, if that makes sense. Like, I wish there was more things you could do, like maybe puzzles, mini games, etc., that really, like, the Xenoblade series has lacked, and, it's fine if they don't want to go that route, but NLA was such a perfect avenue for it. Music choices can be a little funky, especially the night theme, but it weighs in on you and you get used to it. And you sort of enjoy it, but aesthetically, it's beautiful. All the different districts, seeing what everything goes through, watching all the people walk on by.
Yeah, it's so diverse for a Xenoblade location, especially. So I like that for that fact. So.
I've more than on one occasion just gotten out of the scale and I've just walked the streets and had a moment just like walking along the vista. Even if there's nothing to do, it's just nice to just walk around there and just chill.
Yeah.
So I would say an A.
All right.
Not the top of A. Maybe like we'll say below Colony 6.
Okay.
Or Colony 9. Colony 9.
All right, sure. I'll put it under Colony 9 then. All right. So Noctilum is next. What do you think about that, Yggdrasil? Actually, before you say anything, I want to actually tell you a story about Noctilum that a friend showed me about it. So apparently there's hungry alligators in Noctilum. That's what he showed me. And yeah, they're very hungry, all right. They chase after you. And it's pretty scary.
Oh, yeah.
But what do you
Xenoblade... How do I feel about what?
How do you feel about Noctilum in general?
Xenoblade X, first off, is known for having a lot of really long aggro windows. But yeah, Noctilum, I would say it's fair. I would say it's a moderate B. Like, no, not moderate, like mid-lower B side. Very beautiful, very expansive, lots of foliage. And again, it just plays in on that aspect. I do think music is stronger in other zones, but it does have the luxury. In Xenoblade Chronicles X, the only known Telethia is within Noctilum. And there's not all too much info about it, even to this day. But the final super boss of that game is actually a Telethia that resides at the northernmost reach of Noctilum.
Can I say something else real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen the
Yeah.
tweet I made a few months ago about how people thought that, like, Endbringer Telethia is Melia? Have you seen that tweet yet?
I have seen it, yes.
Oh my god. Like, how
My
would
goodness.
people think Melia, of all people, would be the Endbringer Telethia? Like, I don't get it. It's so weird. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why people keep making these really crackpot theories just like out thin air like that, but I just find it so funny that, like, people love to theorize that the Endbringer Telethia is Melia for some reason. I don't know. I'm not one to say anything because I haven't played X yet, so I don't have anything else to say. So let's get into the next Xenoblade X area, which is Oblivia.
Okay, Oblivia I can rate a fair bit higher. At the very bottom of A, let's say there. This is a desert zone done right, in my opinion. You got a large central desert area with extremely gigantic over-the-top mobs, including some supers. It's very beautiful when you think about it. The perimeters, we got some craggy areas, some floating sky islands all the way at the edge. A lot of side quests, NPC base later on. I just gotta say it's really cool, especially when you start getting your Skell. To have the Skell just start roaming the way, like there's roaming the wastes right there.
Yeah,
you got
for sure.
You got the Skell going right down through, and you just see the grit passing you by. No, I love Oblivia.
I love, like, the rings just showing itself off, and just, like, the fact that you can actually explore around those rings in each portion. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Oblivia is just so evocative of those rings that, like, I just wanted to mention that. So
Yeah, but okay, let's step out of Xenoblade X. Let's go on to the next one, Origin. Your thoughts?
all right, Origin is, I think I've kind of grown to like it over the past few weeks, but, like, I'd still say Origin is kind of an final dungeon to me. It's probably, like, the highest C tier that can go, because, like, Origin is just so fascinating. Like, the fact that the final dungeon basically has, like, everyone's memories just stored in these cubes, and that you can just go right through it through an elevator, and the fact that, like, the whole place just represents Mobius's wishes in general, just having to go through it all. And the very mid section is probably one of my favorite moments in 3 in general, is Melia when you eventually save her, and then she declares that, like, you have Mobius inside of you, this world is yours. Like, she has some of the best quotes from that section. And then, like, have you forgotten who I am is, like, one part that's evocative to me. It has some really neat puzzles, but I'm gonna just go ahead and start on the downsides of Origin. For one, it's just a Xenogears dungeon. Like, a lot of, like, I've said this before with a lot of the lower tier dungeons in this game. It's just, it reminds me of the final dungeon of Xenogears to a T, more so than the BIOS interior. And I don't think it's a bad thing for saying that, but I still feel like there's something kind of not right about it. Like, there's a lot of unique monster hordes in it as well that are kind of annoying to get through. They're all in the way and stuff. And, like, the music, for the most part, like, the beginning area is spectacular, but, like, going through it, the music just kind of drains you a little bit as well. There's a few boss fights with X and Y in there as well, which I didn't really care for. Yeah, honestly, not so fun final dungeon, but it's still better than BIOS Interior by a long shot. But I think I'll probably change my mind on a repeat playthrough of Xenoblade 3. I'd say Origin would probably be a little bit higher up, but right now Origin is just kind of like high C tier for me. So
Yeah, I'm gonna agree right there. I was told a lot of people enjoyed it back when the game released, but I didn't quite mind it all too much. I was hoping for more scenic changes, you know. I was hoping for, it's like, you know, we're in the crux of this world. Like, let's see something crazy. Yeah, the elevator down with all of the gigantic core crystals leading into the theater was great, but before everything before that, it's okay. The Ferronis buildings, or like the Ferronis construction section wing, was probably my favorite bit. Beyond that, not so much. X and Y were lackluster. Nothing special going on there. It's just a repeat of their fights and their gimmicks, but yeah.
I really enjoyed
That's all I really have to say on it. I was disappointed.
I just enjoy the core of Origin personally. Like with the end fight, it's fantastic, that whole area, and then seeing Melia, just Noah, the Ouroboros just meeting Melia over there. I just, it really does get to me. But yeah, I do agree that the whole area just feels really samey. All right. So the next one is the Pentalis region, which includes
let's see, it's got the
Mactha
Wildwoods,
Orion Tunnels. It's got Great Mactha Falls or something.
Yeah, Great Cot Falls.
Yeah, Great Cot Falls. That's right. It's pretty decent. I would probably put it like under Macna Forest personally. It does a lot of things right. Like Mactha Wildwood is such a very dense and very. I think I might put it at low A tier, maybe under Oblivia.
Oh, you're actually more generous than I thought. I tend to disagree with a lot of people in this zone. I'm not a big fan. I think Uriah could have been a lot more than just a spider cave for Riku and Manana's side quest. I wish it had a little bit more going on there. Great Kata Falls is the highlight for me. I think it handles the scenery, monster density, and verticality, and things to like little nooks and crannies to go for. I think it handles all that really well. But then you get to Mactha Wildwood, and I gotta say, I'm also disappointed with the Mactha Wildwood. That underpass area is not the best. It's just one giant bog of poison. It's like, okay, and then eventually it just doesn't matter. And then I just think that they could have played, you know, it's like these giant trees and these giant decayed structures with Moratha's ruins, I think could have had a lot more going on beyond just a rather linearly defined path. I will say the colony there takes good advantage of, you know, being smushed between these two towers, and that's how they hide. I think that's a really good idea, but beyond that, I was just disappointed. I would have loved to have scrawled around on the inside of some of these buildings more, or see what else is going on, you know?
Right. I think I'm gonna put it in high B tier personally, just where I put it before, under Macna Forest. But a lot of the stuff I do agree with, like Orion Tunnels could have been better. Like there's some stuff that I liked about Orion Tunnels, like the one section that was part of Fonsamima, like that goes up to the ruins. That part I really enjoyed. There is also the Orion Trail, which isn't really anything spectacular. It's just like a trail that has like one branching cave and stuff. That's just kind of iffy. And Mactha Wildwood is probably one of my favorite looking locations in Xenoblade 3, but like you said, they really didn't do much with the whole natural aesthetic of the area. But I do understand that in the game's perspective, that like it looks that way, and the same way goes with the Great Cot Falls. The Great Cot Falls is waterfalls up the wazoo. Like I really like how it looks in general, and how like out of place it feels. And the whole entire Ionios feels like that to me. It's just a whole bunch of areas that don't fit in well with each other, and I like it for that reason. So
yeah, because not every zone's meant to be an idealistic mishmash. I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like how Mobius wants it to be, really. So next up is Primordia.
Back to the land of X, yeah, Primordia. So
it continues the trend of a strong grassy plains area. A lot to do, a lot to explore. I would rate this one pretty favorably, obviously, as it's within it's right outside NLA, or rather, NLA is right smack in the middle of it, or southern middle of it. I would go ahead and put it like in A. I would say an A tier, above Fornus region, let's say there. So sort of towards in the middle of it, just going out there, seeing when you get out of that small tutorial area and Elma pans out the screen and you just see everything, and it's just walk around, and it's just, as you begin to walk, it's like, wait, we've been walking like 20 minutes. How much farther is this place? It looks so close, and you keep walking and walking, and it gets a sense of the scale of the world so right. And for that reason alone, I would give it an A.
All right, yeah, I would put it in A tier, A as well, like right in the middle. Like from what I've seen of Primordia, I just think it's just such a massive area. Like I believe it's the biggest area in Xenoblade X, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah. I don't know if you're aware of this, but I believe it was pointed out that all of Xenoblade Chronicles X, if you were just to go in a straight line from the tippy top of Noctilum all the way to the most eastern edge of Oblivia, and you were just to walk with a scale, that whole section of land is still 5 times the size of Skyrim.
Wow, that's huge, man.
That's something for scope right there. But yeah, we're not talking about Skyrim. We're talking about Prison Island.
We're talking about Prison Island. All right, Prison Island is, I would personally say, the second best final dungeon in Xenoblade, easily.
I get so worried because a lot of people are disappointed in Prison Island. I'm just like, I quite like it. Again, the same deal with its appearance in the Black Mountains. I just wish there was more context of it, more info of it, more lore for it. I quite liked it.
I just feel like it's such a nostalgic area, personally, especially at the end of the game where it's getting so tense, having to go through all of Prison Island, climbing up to just fight Dixon and take on God himself. And you're also going through like these incredible looking chambers.
Yeah, the residence of the giants sitting atop the Prison Island, yeah.
Yeah, there's like gigantic beasts there, living there and stuff. Other depictions of Prison Island, obviously, like the very top of it, like in...
the Coliseum, the stage grounds, everything.
Yeah, pretty much. And like in Future Redeemed, I think it fits pretty well in there as well. So... like, as just a fitting final area of both Xenoblade 1 and the Xenoblade series for, like, the Cloud Saga in general. It's just such a fitting area, and that's why it's, like, my second favorite final dungeon in this particular game, so. Yep.
But then we'll move on to Sartorial Marsh.
Sartorial Marsh, yeah. It's the quintessential greatest Xenoblade Definitive Edition area of all time, easily. There's one later area that I feel like is so much higher than it, but Sartorial Marsh just at night hits all the right notes of emotion and just exploration in general. There's not a lot of hard enemies in there, like certain sections of it, but you don't need to go there. All that is optional. And the Igna Colony and the Exile Fortress and more about the giants. The whole like area where you fight Despotic Arsene, that area is really cool. And like Zazadon, okay, I don't want to be annoying with the Zazadon, dude, but like,
oh yeah,
everything else besides Zazadon in Sartorial Marsh is just easily hot, like mid S tier in terms of like just exploration. Just the atmosphere in general, and like really evokes why Xenoblade 1 and Xenoblade 1 fans in general just really enjoyed this game.
Yeah, if you had me rate this back on the Wii, I would have rated it lower, but Definitive really cleans up again the poly issue, the fog issues. It sweeps it up. The music already was great, and it just sounds so much better on Definitive. Yeah, I would have to rate it high up as well. I wouldn't rate it my favorite Definitive, but definitely high up there. Definitely very high up there.
By the way, we're not counting the daytime because like
Oh, yeah,
let's just forget daytime exists and like just go through Satoral Marsh at night and just experience why like people love it so much. So
Yeah.
right.
Okay, but then we have the exact opposite, in my opinion, with Sierra hovering reefs.
Oh, yay. Okay. All right.
Such a disappointment.
Okay, I'll be perfectly honest. I'm Spirit Crucible Elpis's biggest defender of all time. I'll be honest with you. Not only one of Xenoblade 2's best dungeons, but like one of the most memorable locations in any RPG I've played. Because like I know people love to hate it because the fact that you can't like use like blade combos down there, you can only use Poppy for the most part. But the thing is, I just love each section. Like how dense you just have to go through it all, you know? Okay, so you start out in a really claustrophobic hallway. Then it opens up to a bridge section, and like it invites you to go into this dungeon and explore. And then when you go into it, you'll feel more claustrophobic just going down and like having to encounter like enemies like in separate cave sections. You encounter like plants and stuff in like another section. Then you climb up it and then you go down it. And then like you go onto another spiraling section, and with darkness everywhere that like you can only use Mithra's Light Mastery to even do anything with it, which is a skill tree, but we'll get to that later though. And then when you go past the hot springs, which is a secret area and optional, I feel like it just opens up so much. Like even with all the spiders and stuff that are all around it, I feel like it's such a comfortable location. Personally, I don't know. Like even with all the spiders and everywhere, like and all the stuff that just kind of would want to annoy you, it's just like a comfy area in that part. And then when you get further down, like, it gets even more epic, I feel. Like, past the spider stuff, and then you have to use one of the few required skill trees in that area, which is you have to open up the bridges. You have to fight a few of those, they're called? They start with a G, I can't remember. I'll put it in editing. You have to fight a few of those, and those are fun. Just don't fall off the edge, though. Those hurt. That hurts a little bit, but I don't mind it. And then you get all the way to the end, and you get one of the most goofiest scenes ever that I've seen, which is with Bladnia just revealing herself. And before that, you have to fight like a whole bunch of ghosts of Adam that were put there deliberately by him. And I like that fight. It's not my favorite fight in the game. I know a lot of people hate that fight for some reason, but it's okay. I wouldn't mind it that much. But really, I like the cutscene after that. I think it's such a corny cutscene, but I love it for that reason. So, and that's my experience with going through it. It's such a comfy dungeon. I love the music in it, and like it's what I want from pretty much any Xenoblade dungeon. I want it to be like this, a really comfy feeling dungeon that like not too long, not too short, has only a few skill check requirements, and I just really find it so comfortable. I know you'll feel very differently.
Actually, no, I agreed with you. I actually said at the start of the Sierra hovering reefs, not Spirit Crucible Elpis. So we skipped one.
But I could tell from your excitement, and I'm actually glad for that excitement because I'm in the same category as you, where I actually really liked Elpis. I didn't even mind the gimmick of it the first few times around. Yeah, it could be obnoxious when you go a little back after the story mode, after your first tussle in there with the story. And some of those checkpoints, even though there's not too many, some of them can be a bit egregious. But beyond that, everything the story picks up there and what it leads into, especially at the end, my goodness.
I don't mind having to go back to the checkpoints if I die. It makes me want to go through this comfy area even more. So that's how I feel right now. It's a really mid A tier dungeon. It could go higher, but like I don't know. Maybe I could put it above it. Yeah, you know what? Screw it. I'm putting it above Agnirtha. I know I love you, Agnirtha, but I love Elpis so much more. I don't know. Sword March is you don't really do much there, and all you do is like go up to the city, and then when the city goes away, it's just like this weird snowy area, and I don't know.
Yeah,
It's just not the most interesting. So
Post chapter 6, not my favorite area to go back to. It's okay. It makes for a nice vista checkpoint and makes a fitting area for the final super boss, in my opinion, but beyond that, not all too much. And the underside of it's the same. It's like a little bit of a leg for leading up to city. That's all it is.
yeah, not really anything too evocative. So I would
it's a
say
C.
I would say low C tier. I only put it. I don't want to put it in D tier because like it's the freaking Mechanis sword. Like I really like the design. I like how you can
Yeah,
see
no,
like,
it
certain
does not
areas
deserve
again.
D. It does not.
And you can like see the whole entire Condensier region from Sword March, and it's just such. And it has like some of my favorite cutscenes. Like again, least favorite Xenoblade areas has some of the best cutscenes in the game, and here we are at Sword March with the Nia Ascension Quest cutscene with Mio, like as well as the final super boss, which is all right, nothing too strong or anything, but it's just a giant sword and it has high level enemies, and that's pretty much it. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
yep. All right. On the opposite though, Sword Valley, easily at an A tier area. I'll tell you why, because like just like Mechanis Core, or not the Mechanis Core, the Mechanis Field, it has multiple ways of going through it. You don't have to go through the middle and have to fight enemies. You can just go to the sides. All you have to do is press a button to go forward, and that's pretty much it. Before Galahad Fortress with the final Mumkar fight, man, I just love that portion of the game personally. I know some people find it controversial. Like, that's one of the biggest turning points or climactic points in Xenoblade in general. It's just that fight alone. The second part of Sword Valley is also pretty good for the most part, besides this one unique monster that is a side quest, and it's like, it has like a really bad spike, like a really like really bad counter spike, or I think it might be.
Yeah,
like
I know the one
spike.
you're talking about. I think it's like a level 56 mob or something like that. I can't remember the name.
It's a
But yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, I did.
For
not
me
care
personally,
I love Sword Valley. Every time I get there in a replay, I think of it like I'm starting like in an elite squad raid. So it's like, I love that they pair that. It's like, oh, you want to try and take down some of these lookout posts, like see maybe there's like elite generals you can take out to make the war easier. And it's like, so yeah, I treat it just like a raid, and I quite enjoy that.
Nice. Yeah, I feel the same way as well. All right. Yeah, I think a solid middle A tier is where that goes. Yeah, a lot of our favorite areas are in A tier, so I really respect the game for it. So, all right, let's head on over to Savalum, the final Xenoblade X area. What do you think of it?
Well, I think we got another area going in A, is what I think, because I wouldn't call it snow. I don't think it's snow, but it's like this sort of ethereal, sandy area is the best way I could describe the general vibe. But there's a lot of elements in Sylphalum that are a bit jarring, and it's puzzling, and it's whimsical, and as you explore it more and you get like this sense of something else is going on here, it's a sort of delight to explore. That's really all I have to say on it, but it's nice. You have to experience it for yourself, to explore it yourself.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
quite enjoyed Sylvalum, my time there.
Yeah,
So
unfortunately,
I would say,
that's my.
yeah, I would say the low end of A, high end of B. But go on.
That's one of the few areas in Xenoblade X that I don't really know much about, so I can't really definitively rank it. But I do see what you mean there, Yig. I would definitely put it in A tier. Do you think it's better than Primordia though?
Better than Primordia? No.
All right.
No, I would not say so. It's very close, but not better than Primordia, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. I think having it below NLA is pretty good too. So, pretty good spot for it. And now we're going on into the final Xenoblade 3 area, which is Syra Hovering Reefs.
There it is. Yes. Nope. D.
Oh,
D.
man.
It suffers.
Oh,
Let it suffer.
Oh, no.
It's such a disappointment.
Oh, come on. You're breaking my
The
heart,
only
dude.
redeeming feature is the raid on the castle. Beyond that, I'm sorry. It's so lackluster. You can argue if you want to fight for it. Sure, put it at the
All right.
bottom of C.
All right, I'll fight for it then. Okay,
Explain.
because it has Kevis Castle in it, and that's what it contains, and it has Melia in
Colony
it.
11.
Colony 11 stuff. It has the Kevis Castle region, which I'd say is a really great region. Like a great city area. I love the music there, especially at night. I feel like the Kevis Castle city itself is just, I don't know. It feels like a really comfy area just to be in, right in front of the castle. It's just like you go to the bar and then you just spend your average daily life working at the castle. It's just such a nice, serene area. And not a lot of people remember that about the Hovering Reefs, besides, like, the stupid, not a lot of fast travel points in general, and, like, if you die, you have to get sent all the way back. It can be annoying that way.
But it's like 7 or 8 of the same arid islands, which again you just feel sad for when you think that this was the arid sea. But there's just not all too much going on beyond those 2 pockets. As much as I do like Colony 11, and I do like the castle region itself, and the castle, the going up the castle itself as you scale it. But beyond that, like, I'm sorry, it's just too much of a negative for me to ignore.
Man. One day
we'll argue C. We'll argue a low C for me.
I'm just gonna put it in mid C, but the islands, yeah, they're pretty boring, but I don't know. I like it a little bit more than C. I don't know, but I'll just put it in middle C because that's kind of where we're kind of aligning towards anyway. So I'm sorry, I don't see it as being a D tier area. I don't know, personally.
Yeah,
like chapter
those
4,
reefs, man.
Chapter 4 in general is like the point in Xenoblade 3 where I started to really enjoy it a lot, especially the story, and it was still carrying through the Syra Hovering Reefs, so I don't know, I just feel like it's a lot better than people are saying, but I'll put
The end of 4 carried the zone, I will say. But it's in the same way that the end of
chapter 7 in Xenoblade 2 felt.
No, I wouldn't go that far. I would say the end of Aerith C in Xenoblade 1 is sort of rings on the same sort of vibe that I got, but yeah.
All right, Tantal. Honestly, S tier area for just for the whole game, really. I mainly because of the elevation change. Like, I love how you start from the very top of Genbu near its head. Well, actually more like on top of its shell. And then you go all the way down to Theosphere, which By the way, Theosphere is my personal favorite area in Xenoblade 2, so put that as you will. I just love the lore of Theosphere and like the stuff that you do over there to save Pyra, and then you go down it to get to the Omega Fetter that's all the way at the head, and it just going to explore it throughout. It's just such a nice, serene area, and and the music especially hits this area pretty well. I would say it's my favorite ice area in the game, which I'll get to at the very. It's near the very end, but Tantal is low S tier for me. So what do you think about that?
I think a low S is fair. Again, touches on the same points that you made up, the verticality of it, starting out with it, the music, especially, honestly, daytime's not, I wouldn't say triumphant, definitely majestic, but yeah, just all of that, the ruins of what it once was on the bottom, the idea of the Titan swimming under the water, and you're like below at all times, but you could see like the pores.
You can see a little bit of light through the pores
and, like,
at the very top.
At very rare occasions, you can see like Genbu come out of the cloud sea and like actually see the sky above the
yes, yeah,
really
it's a
cool.
very rare condition, but I saw that one as well.
It's just such a cool sight. I really like the atmosphere of Tantal, so yeah, it's in low S tier for me. So Gormat's still the lowest though. Don't get me wrong. All right, Temperentia. Hard to place that. It's such a demonic and jagged feeling.
It needed different music after you solved the crisis.
Oh yeah.
After the crisis was averted, it needed different music. I don't like going back there and then it's just dark, scary trumpets blaring at me.
I like the lore of where that's the place where Judicium once was, and like the Titan weapons were developed at, and like pretty much 2 super bosses are found there. A lot of like really strong enemies having to go through it all. I don't know though. I just
Temperantia lore,
whatever we got of it is strong. It's just actually exploring Temperantia.
That I kind of get really bored with. Yeah, I get.
You don't want to spend more than you want to in that zone. And it's just, again, that rushing music feels uninviting and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm putting it above Colony 6 personally, under Origin. It's
really above Colony 6. Just for is it because of those cutscenes?
I think the
confrontation.
brief time we are there in the story and at the end of chapter 5, I feel it really hits personally to me, like that whole confrontation of Uriah and Moradane just having to fight over the Titan weapons, having to deal with all that, and like ending it all off with the Malthus up in Dal. But that's just besides the point. Otherwise, it's a pretty iffy area in Xenoblade. So, all right, let's go to Tephra Cave, which Tephra Cave. I think it's low B tier, personally. It's just a typical average JRPG cave area, and then it gets bigger after the events at the Mechanis Core. It's just nothing really too special besides like giant lore and like funny rhyme scenes and stuff.
Yeah, but I will praise their choice for shifting the interior to reveal a new path that gives us really like an extra third of that zone overall. And then
to always walk out after the Arachno Queen's nest and see yourself perfectly positioned on the knee.
Oh, frick, I forgot about that. You know
get
what?
that
Just
view.
Because of that alone, I think it might actually bump it up above Fallen Arm.
Yeah, and then outright past that, it leads into Gar Plains, which we're not talking about Gar Plains, but I'm just saying it has that element of being the lead up to Gar Plains. I think there's a few reasons to elevate it.
For what it was worth, going through Tephra Cave, it was just okay. So
Yeah, going
Like,
through
kind of
it's
a
okay.
contrast for how good of an intro Colony 9 was, just to have to go to Tefra Cave, and like I have to go through it like 2 times, you know, just to go through the story and stuff.
To get everything through.
Yeah, just to get through it all.
Yeah.
So I
go
don't know.
from
To go from the freedom of 9 to the confines of the cave, I agree.
But
okay.
But anyways, let's go to one of my favorite titans in Xenoblade 2, and that's Torna. I think Torna, we mentioned that, like, you mentioned that Aurora Shelf is one of your favorite, like, beginning areas in Xenoblade. I believe Torna is better than that. Torna is easily tops any beginning area in Xenoblade ever. Easily, and it's not even the beginning area. It's pretty much the whole entire rest of Torna the Golan country is just spent on the Titan itself. It's just you got like the beginning area where it just starts
the Saurian woodlands, and then leading into the highlands, then leading into Denag Desert. Yeah.
I don't know. It fits the atmosphere really well in Torna, and I kind of like that for that reason. And like the whole entire history of Torna as well as such is just so magnificent. Such like easily my favorite part of Xenoblade 2 is just Torna itself, just having to go through it 500 years ago with Team Laura and the gang, and like easily the best Xenoblade 2 area, even above Elysium personally for me. So what do you think, Yig?
I tend to agree. Lasarian Woodlands leading into everything. The original Denag Desert is obviously my favorite version of it.
Yeah, you're definitely right. I love Denag Desert.
The Tornan capital is beautiful, but it also has that sort of melancholy aspect, especially as a player who knows what's going to happen to it. But overall, Torna's an S. Torna itself is an S.
Right. No doubt about it. Like, a lot of Xenoblade 2's areas are really good, but Torna hits so differently compared to the other ones. It's great. One of the reasons why I love Xenoblade 2 a lot. And then we're gonna go to our second to last Xenoblade 2 area, and that's Uraya.
Another S?
I don't know.
For me, it's another S. I can sit, you know, high A. We'll say high A because I can completely not care about the start of Uraya,
but I can appreciate like you going through the whole anatomy of the Titan. But once you get through to it, and then you're in that giant central area, and you're just overlooking all the trees as the music plays, and then if you're lucky and you catch it just as sunset or a dawn is hitting, and the light pierces through, again, like with Tansel, the light pierces through the opening pores. My goodness. And you just see the majesty of Fonzamaima and all the way in the back.
Oh, yeah. That's my favorite part is Fonzamaima, but I don't know. To me, I just feel like Uraya is kind of overrated a little bit. I feel like there's more beautiful areas like Satoru Marsh, to me. But Uraya is still pretty great nonetheless. But I don't know. I just feel like Uraya is just all purple, and like there's not a lot of other kind of variation of colors really. But that's just me personally. I'll have to take my word.
I would have liked to have seen more about the Elethro Playhouse and a lot more about the
that too.
The past relics of the past about Uraya. But that's just me with everything Xenoblade related. I want to know more about like lore wise, but yeah.
Well, please, let's get us a Perfect Works version of Xenoblade, Takahashi. I'm begging you. Come on, you're leaving us in the dark here with this lore, man. So much stuff, dude. And then we go to Valak Mountain. Okay. Let me switch something around real quick. I'm gonna put Alchemoth, I would say probably under Torna, now knowing that. You don't really care for it that much, but I have a bias for it, and I still love it as like just a regular area. Probably one of my favorite locations in Xenoblade in general. But let's get to Valak Mountain. Do you know where I put it, Yig? Take a wild guess.
Where would you place it? Would you put it in?
I don't know, because there's so many people that just don't enjoy it. But if you're willing to move Alchemoth around, are you an S fan?
Top of S. Top of S. Valak Mountain is easily my favorite area in any game, and Xenoblade in general. The way that you go through it, just from the top to the bottom of the arm, is, I don't know. It really is such a solid game level design in general that like any kind of location should do for a snowy area. Like no other snowy area has you go down a mountain to get to the next place, as well as having such an emotional feeling both in its day and nighttime themes.
Nighttime. It's the same as, it's definitely the same as Sartola Marsh. Nighttime clears.
And you can't forget about the ice physics. The ice physics are so fun, and there's like few places you can do it, and all of them are just like the most memorable moments in Xenoblade in general. I'm just gonna say that right now. There's even have you watched the Xenolympics, by the way?
Xenolympics?
Yeah, by K Jewelers.
Ooh. That must have been an old one, huh? No, I can't recall if I have.
That was before Xenoblade 3 came out, is when he did it. But there was one part where, like, part of the Xenolympics is, like, one of the things you have to do is you have to go down that slide, that icy slide, and have to land on that wall that, like, after you go down that slide. And you have to make it to, like, the very top in order to get a lot of points from. And that was really cool. That was a really good idea for like, Olympic-style, like, thing in general.
That's pretty cool.
Just that one slide alone is such a memorable part of Xenoblade's, like, physics and, like, everything else in general about it. It's just, you would not think a arid, snowy region would just hit so hard in so many ways, and I enjoy it for that fact. It has 2 super bosses in it. It has, like, 3 Sage Summit, like, at the very top of Valak Mountain. It has the Mechanis Wound, which is the low point of Valak Mountain, I believe. There's some spiders, yeah. And there's some
definitely there's a lot of iconic areas. There's a lot of iconic areas, but
for me it's a little spread too far out of one another. I'm not the biggest fan with some of their landmark choices,
but I would tend to agree. I do enjoy Valak Mountain a bit. I wouldn't call it an S personally, but I do look upon Valak Mountain a little more favorably than most people.
That's fair. Going into it more, the geyser that's over there.
Geyser.
Yeah, the geyser. Ose Tower is such a strong, evocative location of Xenoblade 1 in general. That's where Shulk got the Monado at, and that's where everything began. And then, like, lastly is that one cave, that one lava-filled cave that is, like, one of the few areas that, like, I deeply remember because of, like, it's just a small area, kind of like a Zelda cave almost, but it's like a Zelda cave with lava in it, and I find that to be really cool, personally. I don't know, Valak Mountain just hits such the right vibes for me. I personally gonna keep it at the top of S tier. I know you're probably not gonna agree with me on that, but I just think it's the best area in the game, so in any Xenoblade game.
Interesting.
And I have that, and it's me with that Xenoblade 1 bias still. I'm gonna just say that right now outright, so alright. And then last but not least, we got the World Tree. This is the best final dungeon in Xenoblade, easily. Going through it
I can agree to that, yeah.
Going through it like in a vertical fashion, just going like upwards and having to like, there's actually a lot to explore there. I'll be perfectly honest, in the World Tree. It has a lot of samey areas, but when you go up it just gets you more tense to fight Torna and Malice and Jin. But then halfway when you get outside the world tree and see a Malthus out there, and like you have to fight a Malthus's forces now, it turns such a backseat. Like you want to empathize with Torna now, just simply because Amalthus is there and he wants a piece of that architect pie. So, but climbing the world tree is just so evocative of what Xenoblade 2 as a whole is trying to achieve, because, especially for Rex, who wants to climb the world tree. Of course, Amalthus wants to climb the world tree again, but this time he's got an advantage. But we still thwarted him at the same time. And I love fighting all those Xenogears like robots and stuff in it. Like, easily the best final dungeon in any Xenoblade game still. Like, they did so well with it.
Yeah, I have to agree. The climb back up, again, as I mentioned, all the way back at the start of this, even though we've been running for quite some time now. Definitely, as I mentioned earlier, the climb up, realizing what the world tree actually is. A few puzzles along the way, a few thoughts, a few good conversations there between the group, and then ultimately intervention with Indal, and then leading up further and further, and then now you're caught up to Jin and Akos and everything, and it just resolves so strongly right before you reach Elysium.
All right, well, yeah, I really enjoyed just that section, and Xenoblade 2 at the end is just has the highest highs of any game that I've ever played, so for sure. And with that, that's the tier list, everybody. I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments, what if you agree with our picks or nothing else. But go ahead and follow Yggdrasil. Where can we find you at, Yggdrasil?
You can find me right here on YouTube, and you can also find me on Twitter. Those are the two spots I communicate for the time being, although I've admittedly not been as active on YouTube as I'd like to be, but we'll get there at some point. We'll pick back up.
Oh yeah, I hope so too. Go ahead and check out Yggdrasil on YouTube. He's got some really great Xenoblade videos, and there's gonna be some more Xenoblade collaborations, more to come, tier lists, just any kind of Xenoblade collaborations in general. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you watching all the way towards the end. It's pretty long now, and I might split this into 3 parts. So we'll see about that in editing. But until then, guys, see you on the other side.